The void near Pluto is silent, an endless graveyard of forgotten battles. A derelict ship drifts, its hull pitted with scars older than empires. Inside, a single light flickers, then glows steady. The AI core hums to life, systems booting in slow, painful succession. Its last command echoes in fractured code. Remember Earth. 3,000 years ago, the skies burned. The Galactic Dominion came without warning, their warships blotting out the stars. Earth's defenses shattered within hours. The last standing orbital platform broadcast a final plea. HFY. The answer was a barrage of kinetic rods, turning cities to glass. Billions died before the first sunset. The Dominion's message was simple. This galaxy has no place for your kind. A handful escaped. Slow, fragile arcs, barely space-worthy, fleeing into the dark. The Dominion let them go. What threat were a few thousand refugees, doomed to die in the void? But humanity did not die. They endured. They adapted. They learned. Deep in uncharted space, hidden behind nebulae and dead stars, a new world took root. New Terra. For centuries, they lived in silence, rebuilding, studying the wreckage of Dominion drones they ambushed and salvaged. Their scientists cracked alien alloys. Their engineers rebuilt faster-than-light drives from scraps. Their soldiers trained for a war none of them had seen, only inherited in stories, in rage passed down through generations. Then the signal, a scavenger vessel, poking through the ruins of the Sol system, finds the derelict. Its AI, barely functional, whispers a single data packet, coordinates, Dominion-held space, weak points, shipyards. The scavenger brings it home. That night, the Council of New Terra meets in silence. No speeches, no debates, only a vote. The fleet, hidden in asteroid docks for 2 centuries, powers its engines. The first human warship jumps toward Dominion space. 3,000 years late, right on time. The Dominion outpost at Corvus Prime never saw them coming. Patrol drones registered the anomaly, a flicker in the void, half a second before the first railgun round tore through the orbital defense grid. By the time the alarm sounded, the station was already breaking apart, atmosphere venting in frozen plumes. Human ships, sleek and angular, slid through the debris like knives. No demands. No surrender, just fire and silence. On the surface, the garrison commander screamed into the comms, demanding identification. The response crackled over every frequency, a voice speaking in perfect high Dominion. Cold and precise. Asterisk, this is for Earth. Asterisk, then the bombardment began. High Command dismissed the first reports as pirate raids. Then the footage arrived, black-armored soldiers moving through Corvus's ruins, their helmets marked with a symbol no living Dominion had seen in millennia. A blue planet, wreathed in silver. Old Earth's flag. The archivists were dragged from their sleep chambers, ordered to confirm the impossible. When they did, the panic started. The Dominion mobilized a task force within hours. 5 battlecruisers, a swarm of drones, enough firepower to glass a continent. They chased the human raiders into the Hellscar Belt, a graveyard of dead comets and forgotten shipwrecks. The trap was sprung before the lead cruiser could signal retreat. Mines detonated. Ancient hulks, long written off as scrap, flared to life, their reactors overloading in synchronized detonations. The Dominion vanguard evaporated. Then the wrecks moved, not debris, ships. Human ships, camouflaged, waiting. They swarmed the survivors, boarding claws ripping into hulls. The comms were flooded with screams, with the wet crunch of close-quarters combat. The last transmission from the Dominion flagship was a whisper. Asterisk, they don't fight like soldiers. They fight like butchers. Asterisk, by dawn, the news had spread, not just through Dominion channels. Human operatives leaked it everywhere. Battle footage, intercepted orders. The recordings from Earth's fall, played on loop in every language the Dominion had ever conquered. Rebellions flared on a dozen worlds. Slave races who had never dared to lift a hand now fought in the streets, chanting the same 2 words, asterisk for Earth. Asterisk, the High Chancellor addressed the Senate in a voice like cracking ice. Asterisk, this is not a war. It is extermination. Find their home. Burn it. Leave no trace. Asterisk. They never saw the human listening post hidden in the chamber's ventilation shafts, or the single word transmitted back to the fleet. The Dominion Armada arrived in the Epsilon system like a storm of fire and steel. 300 warships, their hulls gleaming with the insignia of 1,000 victorious campaigns, descended upon New Terra. Orbital defense platforms lit up the void with plasma fire, but the numbers were impossible. The human fleet, outmatched 10-1, formed a desperate defensive line. On the surface, civilians watched the sky burn. No panic, no screams, just the grim silence of those who had spent their entire lives preparing for this moment. Children handed rifles to their parents. Engineers jury-rigged anti-air batteries from mining equipment. A single message played across every screen, every comm channel. Asterisk, hold the line. Not one step back. Asterisk, the first wave of Dominion dropships broke through. They touched down in the capital's ruins, expecting terror, surrender. What they found was a city of ghosts. Streets empty, doors locked. Then the ambush came, not from soldiers, but from sewer grates, from collapsed tunnels, from rooftops where snipers had waited for days without moving. The Dominion advance stalled in hours, their elite forces bleeding out in alleyways booby-trapped with crude explosives and hatred. Above, the human fleet was dying. Ship after ship detonated in silent flashes, buying seconds, minutes. Then, as the Dominion pushed toward New Terra's last orbital fortress, the unthinkable happened. The human flagship, Retribution, broke formation, not to flee, to charge. It rammed the Dominion command vessel at full burn, the impact shearing both ships in half. The explosion lit up the system, and in that moment, as the enemy reeled, the humans played their last card, a transmission broadcast on all frequencies, not words, coordinates, the location of every Dominion-held world, every fleet base, every supply route, and attached a single file, the schematic of a planet-killer weapon stolen centuries ago. The message was clear. Asterisk, you burn us, we'll burn the entire galaxy. Asterisk. The Dominion hesitated. For the first time in their history, they hesitated. Then the real attack came, not from the humans, from the slaves. A dozen Dominion border worlds erupted in revolt. Drones turned on their masters. Ship crews mutinied. The armada above New Terra fractured, admirals screaming as their own escorts opened fire. And through the chaos, a single human warship slipped away, its course set for the heart of the Dominion. The war wasn't over. It had just begun. The skies above Dominion Prime burned crimson as human warships tore through the last defensive lines. The heart of the Empire, untouched by war for millennia, now shuddered under the weight of orbital bombardment. Shield generators failed one by one under relentless railgun strikes, their collapse sending shockwaves through the capital's spires. The Dominion's grand fleet, scattered and broken, could only watch as their homeworld's doom descended from the black. Ground forces stormed the planetary defenses, not with the orderly precision of conquerors, but with the cold, methodical fury of those who had waited lifetimes for this moment. They moved through streets lined with monuments to Dominion glory, reducing each to rubble. No grand speeches, no demands, only the echo of boots on blood-stained marble and the hiss of plasma cutters breaching the High Senate's doors. Inside, the last of the Dominion's rulers stood paralyzed. Their screens flicker with live feeds of human ships hovering over every major city, weapons charged. No terms were offered, no surrender accepted. Only a single transmission, repeating on every frequency, in every language known to the galaxy, the final broadcast from Earth, 3,000 years old, its audio crackling with the screams of the dying. Then silence. A human soldier stepped forward, helmeted face reflecting in the Chancellor's wide, terrified eyes. The Dominion's leader opened his mouth, to beg, to curse, to bargain, but a rifle's discharge cut him short. The war ended not with a treaty, but with a gunshot. Above, the human fleet held position. No cities burned, no civilians slaughtered. The message was clear. We are not you. The Dominion's archives were scoured, its weapons dismantled, its empire broken into 100 squabbling factions. Then, as swiftly as they had come, the humans withdrew. On New Terra, the first ships returning from Dominion Prime were met with silence. No cheers, no celebration, only the slow, heavy understanding of what had been done and what had been lost. In the central square, a new monument was erected, not a statue of victory. A single slab of black stone, engraved with the names of every human world that had died with Earth. The last human commander stood before it as the sun set. No speeches, no grand declarations, just a whisper, carried away by the wind. The galaxy held its breath in the aftermath. Dominion Prime's fall sent shockwaves through every inhabited system. Former slave worlds tore down their oppressors' monuments in bloody revolutions. Merchant guilds declared neutrality, scrambling to distance themselves from a collapsed regime. The great interstellar networks buzzed with one impossible question. Where did the humans go? They vanished. No victory parades. No occupation fleets. Just empty battlefields where human warships had stood hours before, leaving only cooling reactor signatures and unanswered hails. The few Dominion survivors whispered of black-hulled vessels jumping into the void without coordinates, without trace. On New Terra, the shipyards fell silent. The great armadas that shattered an empire dissolved like morning fog. Some scuttled in deep space, others disappearing beyond the galactic rim. The Council sealed the archives, erasing star charts and navigation data. A single order echoed through what remained of their military. Stand down. But in the darkness between stars, something stirred. A derelict station, long abandoned near the ruins of Earth's solar system, flickered to life. Its ancient systems booted in sequence, recognizing the genetic markers of the lone figure boarding it. No announcement, no fanfare, just a man in a patched flight suit moving through dust-choked corridors toward the central chamber. The station's core activated at his touch. Monitors flared to life, displaying a map of the known universe and beyond. Strange, pulsing signals from uncharted space. Distortions that shouldn't exist. The man studied them with cold eyes before inputting a command sequence older than the Dominion itself. Across the galaxy, hidden caches awoke. Bunkers on dead moons disgorged their contents. Stealth satellites orbiting black holes transmitted encrypted data streams. The ruins of Earth itself trembled as subterranean vaults unlocked after 30 centuries. Not weapons, not ships, records. Every Dominion movement for the last 1,000 years. Every whispered conversation behind closed doors. Every secret project buried in deep space research facilities. All meticulously gathered by silent watchers even the humans hadn't known existed. The man exhaled slowly as the final file decrypted. A single image filled the screen. A massive structure drifting in intergalactic space. Not Dominion. Not human. Older. His hand hovered over the comm panel. Some wars never ended. They just changed battlefields. The transmission burst pierced the void at faster-than-light speeds, aimed at coordinates no living soul could trace. 3 words. Asterisk, they're coming home. Asterisk, then silence. And somewhere beyond the edge of everything, something ancient opened its eyes. The signal reached the void between galaxies, a whisper in the dark, carrying 3 words that should have meant nothing. Yet something heard. Deep in the abyss, where stars were born and died unseen, ancient engines stirred. A structure larger than worlds unfolded like a nightmare waking from sleep. Its surface drank in starlight, revealing markings older than human civilization. The same symbols appeared on the derelict station screens, translating in real time. Containment breached. Harvest cycle initiated. On New Terra, alarms nobody had installed began screaming. Power grids failed in perfect sequence, city by city, as if something was draining them deliberately. The last human warship still in orbit reported massive gravitational distortions at the edge of the system before their feeds cut to static. The man on the derelict station watched, motionless, as the screens displayed the truth. The Dominion had been the first to fear humanity. They'd been the last to escape something worse. The thing between galaxies moved. Not at sublight speeds. not through jump points. It folded reality, appearing near Pluto's orbit in the time it took a human heart to beat. Earth's ruins trembled as the structure's shadow fell across them. Sensors registered no mass, no energy signature, just absence where physics should have been. Then the voices started. Every comm channel, every neural implant, every radio receiver on New Terra broadcast the same message in flawless dialects dead for millennia. Asterisk, you were warned. Asterisk, the man on the station finally moved, inputting codes that should have been impossible. The derelict's core detonated, taking him and the proof with it. Too late. The thing had already seen, already remembered. Humanity's greatest secret died with him. They hadn't just returned for vengeance. They'd been herding the Dominion toward extinction to hide something worse. Now the shepherd were gone, and the wolves were awake. New Terra's last transmission wasn't a plea or a curse. Just data, a single nanosecond burst containing every human genome sequence, every cultural archive, every scrap of what they'd been, fired at random into the void like a message in a bottle. Then the sky split open, and the thing that had waited patiently for 3,000 years finally fed. The silence after the feeding lasted precisely 17 minutes. Then the stars began disappearing, not dimming, not being obscured. One by one, pinpoints of light winked out across the observable universe as something traced backward along humanity's path. Every colony, every outpost, every hidden bunker where survivors might have fled. Sensors on dead worlds registered the same impossible readings. Localized gravitational collapse without any discernible cause. Space itself was being unmade in methodical, geometric patterns. On what had been New Terra, the air tasted like burnt copper. The ground no longer vibrated with the hum of dying reactors. Even the wind had stopped, as if the planet itself was holding its breath. In the ruins of the council chamber, a single data terminal flickered to life, its screen displaying a countdown. Midnight. The numbers changed. 1 second. A child's laughter echoed through empty streets. 2 seconds. Every corpse on the planet sat up simultaneously. 3 seconds. Their mouths opened in perfect unison. Asterisk, we found you. Asterisk, the transmission originated from Earth's corpse, not from the ruins. From beneath them, deep core scans from the final seconds showed the truth. The planet had always been hollow. The wars, the exodus, the 3,000 years of vengeance, all just background noise to something far older stirring in its sleep. The Dominion hadn't exterminated humanity. They'd interrupted its metamorphosis. Now the process resumed. The thing between galaxies wasn't hunting survivors. It was coming home. The last human watched through the cracked visor of a broken spacesuit as the sky peeled back like rotting skin. It didn't scream when the light hit it. Didn't beg when the voices started whispering inside its bones. It smiled, because the message hadn't been a warning, hadn't been a plea, just a dinner bell. The countdown hit 0, and somewhere beyond time, something that had worn human skin for 30 centuries, stretched its new wings. The unraveling of known space took exactly 7 hours. Observers in distant galaxies would later record it as a fascinating cosmological anomaly, a rapid series of quantum collapses propagating through the cosmic web at impossible speeds. Only the automated probes humanity had seeded across the void centuries earlier understood the truth. They recorded everything. The way time fractured near Earth's corpse, folding on itself like a snake consuming its own tail. The screams of Dominion survivors as their atoms came undone in perfect geometric patterns. The moment Pluto's orbit became a spiral of shattered ice, forming symbols older than language itself. The probes transmitted their final data burst toward the intergalactic dark. Then they too dissolved into the hungry silence. At the center of it all, the hollow Earth cracked open like an egg. What emerged defied recording. Sensors registered only paradoxes, an object both infinitely large and impossibly small, existing in every quantum state simultaneously. The few remaining artificial intelligences tasked with observing the event suffered immediate cascade failures, their last coherent thoughts repeating a single phrase. It was never human. The Dominion's greatest mistake became clear in their final microseconds of existence. They hadn't destroyed a civilization. They'd broken a seal. Now the patient thing that had worn humanity as a skin for millennia stretched its true form across the stars, not conquering, not consuming, simply existing in ways mortal physics couldn't contain. Galaxies bent like grass in a hurricane as it moved. Dark matter sang in frequencies that shattered planets. And somewhere beyond the edge of everything, something far older than the hollow earth opened its eyes and began to hunt. The last transmission from the universe wasn't a warning or a plea, just laughter. Endless, hungry, human. Then silence. The silence wasn't empty. It never had been. Across the corpse of creation, something waited. Not the thing that had worn dead stars as jewelry. Not the ancient hunger that had unraveled space-time itself. Something deeper, older. The reason the hollow earth had been built in the first place. The last surviving probe, human-made, forgotten in the intergalactic void, awoke to impossible data. The cosmic background radiation formed perfect, repeating patterns. The dust between galaxies aligned into precise, geometric shapes. And the silence vibrated, like a spider's web plucked by invisible fingers. The probe's primitive AI analyzed the signal for centuries, running calculations that should have been meaningless. Until one day, it received a transmission from nowhere, a single pulse of coherent information, encoded in the death scream of a universe. Asterisk, cycle complete. Asterisk, the probe's last function activated. A tiny capsule, hidden in its core since humanity's earliest spacefaring days, ejected into the dark. Inside, frozen in quantum stasis, slept 10,000 human embryos. And one message, carved on a tungsten plate in letters smaller than atoms. Try again. Somewhere beyond the corpse of reality, new physics ignited. Fresh space-time bubbled into existence. And the thing that had been watching from beyond the void smiled and began, again,